Captain Sora stood in the command center of Defense Station Alpha. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations. Every screen showed data about the approaching Krell fleet. The numbers were terrifying. 2,000 enemy ships against 200 human vessels. It was not a fair fight. It was not even close. 24 hours had passed. The deadline was over. The Krell fleet was now moving into attack position. Sora watched the enemy ships spread out like a net around Earth. They would strike from every angle at once. It was a smart tactic. It left no room for escape. Status report, she said calmly. Her voice did not shake. A captain could not show fear. The crew needed to see strength. Lieutenant Byung spoke from his station. All defense platforms are online. All ships are in position. Civilians are in shelters. We are as ready as we can be, Captain. As ready as we can be. The words hung in the air. Everyone knew what they meant. They were going to lose this battle. The Krell were too strong, but orders were orders. Earth Command had been clear. Hold the line. Make them work for every meter. Buy time for the evacuation ships to escape with as many people as possible. Sora looked at her crew. She saw young faces and old faces. She saw fear, yes, but also determination. These people knew they might die today. But they had chosen to stay. They had chosen to fight. That was what it meant to be human. She opened a channel to all human ships and stations. This is Captain Sora, she said. I will not lie to you. We are outnumbered 10-1. Our weapons are weaker. Our shields are thinner. The enemy has every advantage except one. They do not know us. They do not know what humans can do when we fight for our home. She paused. Every human in the fleet was listening. Remember what we are, she continued. We are the species that survived the Ice Age with stone tools. We are the species that crossed oceans in wooden boats. We are the species that went to the moon before we had proper computers. We do not give up. We do not quit. And today, we will show these aliens why Earth is still ours. A cheer went through the command center. It was not loud, but it was real. Sora felt her own heart beat faster. She was scared. Of course she was scared. But fear did not matter. What mattered was the job. The Krell fleet opened fire. The space around Earth lit up with weapons fire. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human positions. It looked like a storm of light and death. Return fire, Sora ordered. All weapons maximum rate. The human ships and stations fired back. Their weapons were older, simpler, but they fired them with skill. Human gunners had practiced for years. They knew how to aim, how to lead a target, how to make every shot count. The first wave of Krell missiles hit the outer defense platforms. Explosions bloomed in space. 2 platforms went dark immediately. Their shields had not been strong enough. But the other platforms kept firing. Even damaged, even burning, they kept shooting at the enemy. Sora watched the battle unfold. The Krell were advancing in perfect formation. Their computers controlled their movements with precision. Every ship moved in sync with the others. It was beautiful in a deadly way, and it was working. The human defenses were being torn apart, but something strange was happening. The Krell were winning, yes, but they were not winning as fast as they should. Human ships were doing unexpected things. A destroyer that should have retreated instead rammed a Krell cruiser. Both ships exploded. A damaged frigate used its dying power to fire every weapon at once, taking out 2 enemy fighters before it broke apart. The Krell computers could not predict this. They were programmed for logical warfare. But humans were not fighting logically. They were fighting with desperation and creativity. They were doing things that made no tactical sense but somehow worked anyway. A message came through from one of the orbital defense stations. This is Station 7, a voice said. The voice belonged to Major Daehyun. We have critical damage. Shields are down. Hull is breached. We have maybe 5 minutes before the reactor goes critical. Evacuate immediately, Sora ordered. Get your people to the escape pods. There was a pause. Then Daehyun spoke again. Negative, Captain. If we evacuate, the Krell will just fly past our position. But if we stay and aim the station at their formation, and let the reactor go critical at the right moment, we can take out at least 20 of their ships. Sora felt her throat tighten. She knew what he was saying. He was going to turn the station into a bomb. He and his crew were going to die to destroy enemy ships. That is not necessary, she said. You have done enough. With respect, Captain, Daehyun said. That is for us to decide. We volunteered for this mission. We knew the risks, and right now we can help. We can hurt them. So we will. Before Sora could respond, the channel closed. On her screen, she saw Station 7 begin to move. It was turning, aiming itself at the thickest part of the Krell formation. The station was already badly damaged. Fire burned across its hull, but it kept moving, kept turning until it faced the right direction. The Krell saw what was happening. They tried to destroy the station before it could reach them. Dozens of ships fired at it. But Station 7 had shut down everything except the engines and the reactor. All power went to forward momentum. It picked up speed, moving faster and faster toward the enemy fleet. Then it exploded. Not a small explosion. A massive detonation that lit up space like a new sun. The reactor overload created a blast wave that caught 19 Krell ships. Some were destroyed instantly. Others were crippled and drifted away, helpless. The human fleet went silent for a moment. Then someone started broadcasting the names of the crew who had died on Station 7. Other voices joined in. Soon, every human in the fleet was saying the names. It was a memorial and a promise. Those deaths would not be forgotten. They would not be wasted. Sora looked at the tactical display. The Krell fleet had paused. For the first time, they had stopped advancing. They were analyzing what had happened. They were trying to understand why Station 7 had done what it did. Their computers could not make sense of it. On the Krell flagship, Commander Ji-hoon was staring at his own screens. His face showed confusion and something else, something he had not felt in years. Uncertainty. Why did they do that? He asked. They could have escaped. They could have lived. Mira, his second officer, spoke quietly. Maybe that is what the Council was trying to tell us. Humans do not think like we do. They do not calculate survival probability. They just fight. Ji-hoon shook his head. It does not matter. They are still losing. Resume the attack. The Krell fleet moved forward again, but now there was something different in the air. The Krell crews were talking among themselves. They had lost 19 ships to a tactic that should not have worked. They had seen an enemy that refused to behave logically, and for the first time in their history, the mighty Krell Empire had discovered doubt. The battle continued. More human ships fell. More stations were destroyed. But every loss cost the Krell. Every human who died took enemies with them. And slowly, very slowly, Commander Ji-hoon began to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. Engineer Taeho was trapped. His ship, the cargo vessel Phoenix, was breaking apart around him. The Krell attack had torn through the hull. Half the crew was dead. The other half had evacuated in the escape pods. But Taeho had stayed behind. Someone needed to keep the reactor stable long enough for the pods to get away safely. Now the pods were gone. They had escaped. The crew was safe. But Taeho was still here, in the burning engineering bay of a dying ship. The smart thing to do would be to find a suit and jump out into space. Maybe someone would rescue him. Maybe. But Taeho was not thinking about escape. He was thinking about revenge. The Phoenix was just a cargo ship. It had weak weapons and thin armor. In a normal fight, it could not hurt the Krell. But this was not a normal fight. And Taeho had an idea. He looked at the reactor readouts. The core was damaged but still running. It was losing containment slowly. In about 10 minutes, it would go critical and explode. The explosion would destroy the Phoenix completely. It would also kill anyone still on board. But what if he made the reactor go critical faster? What if he aimed the ship at the Krell fleet before it exploded? The Phoenix could become a missile. A big, slow-burning missile. If he could get close enough to the enemy ships before the reactor blew, he could take some of them with him. Taeho pulled up the navigation controls. Half the systems were dead, but the thrusters still worked barely. He could move the ship. He could aim it. He just needed a target. His screen showed the Krell fleet spread out across space. Most of the ships were too far away. But there was a group of 6 cruisers about 2 kilometers from his position. They were firing at a human destroyer. They had not noticed the Phoenix. They thought it was just debris, another dead ship floating in space. Perfect. Taeho fired the thrusters. The Phoenix shuddered and began to move. It was not fast. The ship was too damaged for speed, but it was moving in the right direction, toward the 6 Krell cruisers. He opened a channel to the fleet. This is Engineer Taeho on the cargo ship Phoenix. I am making a reactor overload run on 6 Krell cruisers at coordinates 4729. All human ships, please clear the area. This is going to be big. A response came immediately. It was Captain Sora from Defense Station Alpha. Taiho, you need to evacuate. We can send a rescue shuttle. No time, Captain, Taiho said. He was working the reactor controls as he spoke. He was manually removing safety limits, pushing the core to maximum output. The reactor temperature was climbing fast, and I can do more good here than in an escape pod. 6 cruisers is a good trade for 1 cargo ship. The Phoenix was getting closer to the Krell ships, 1 kilometer away now. The cruisers were still focused on the human destroyer. They had not detected the threat, or maybe they did not think a burning cargo ship could hurt them. They were about to learn different. Taiho looked at the reactor display. The core was glowing white-hot. Alarms were screaming. The containment field was at 5%. In about 30 seconds, the whole thing would blow. He just needed to get a little closer. The Krell finally noticed him. One of the cruisers turned and fired. The beam hit the Phoenix in the cargo bay. Another piece of the ship tore away. But Taiho did not care about that. The engineering section was still intact. The reactor was still building toward overload. Everything was going according to plan. 500 meters. The Krell were firing everything now. They had realized what was happening, but it was too late to stop him. The Phoenix was too close. Even if they destroyed the ship now, the reactor would still explode right next to their formation. Taiho thought about his family. He had a sister on Mars. She was safe, far from the battle. He hoped she would understand why he did this. He hoped she would be proud. He opened one last transmission. Tell my sister I love her. Tell her I did something that mattered. The reactor went critical. The Phoenix vanished in a ball of white fire. The explosion caught all 6 Krell cruisers. 3 were destroyed immediately. 2 more were crippled. The 6th lost its engines and spun away into space, out of control. In 5 seconds, Taiho had eliminated a significant piece of the enemy fleet. Across the battlefield, other humans saw what had happened. They saw that even a damaged cargo ship could hurt the Krell if the crew was brave enough. And they started to get ideas. Pilot Nari was flying a damaged fighter. Her ship had taken a hit early in the battle. The weapons were offline. The shields were gone. She should have returned to base for repairs, but there was no time. The Krell were everywhere. Every ship was needed. She heard Taiho's final transmission. She saw the explosion that took out the 6 cruisers, and she made a decision. If a cargo ship could become a weapon, then so could a fighter. Especially a fighter that was already broken and could not fight normally anyway. Nari looked at her fuel gauge. She had about 60% left. More than enough. She cut the safety limiters on the engine. The fighter jumped forward, accelerating to speeds that would have been dangerous even with a fully functional ship. With a damaged ship, it was suicide. But that was the point. She spotted her target. A Krell command ship. It was huge, 5 times bigger than any human vessel. It was coordinating a group of 40 enemy ships. If she could damage it, maybe confuse its systems, it would slow down the whole group. Nari pushed the engine to maximum. The fighter was screaming now. Metal was groaning. The hull was heating up from the friction and the damaged systems, but she did not slow down. She aimed straight at the command ship, right at what she thought was the bridge section. The Krell tried to shoot her down. Point defense weapons tracked her fighter. Energy beams flashed past. One hit her wing, tearing it away. The fighter started to spin, but Nari held the course. She had locked the controls. Even if she died now, the fighter would keep going toward the target. She thought about her daughter. The girl was only 8 years old. She was in a shelter deep underground. Safe. Whatever happened today, her daughter would live. That was what mattered. That was what all of this was for. Nari opened a channel. This is Fighter 7. To anyone who can hear this, do not let them forget us. Do not let them think they can do this to Earth without paying the price. We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not run. We fight until we win or until we die, and sometimes dying is how we win. The fighter hit the Krell command ship at full speed. The impact punched through the armor. The fuel tanks exploded. The command ship did not explode like Taiho's reactor had, but it was badly damaged. Its communication systems went dark. The 40 ships it had been coordinating suddenly lost their orders. They hesitated, confused, and in that moment of hesitation, human ships struck. Destroyers and frigates that had been waiting for an opening fired everything they had. Missiles and energy beams tore into the confused Krell formation. In 30 seconds of chaos, the humans destroyed 8 more enemy ships. On the Krell flagship, Commander Ji-hoon watched it all happen. He saw the cargo ship suicide run. He saw the fighter attack. He saw his ships dying to enemies that should have been easy to defeat. His hands were shaking. The mighty Krell Empire, undefeated in 300 worlds, was being hurt by primitive humans. "This is wrong," he said quietly. "This is all wrong. They should be running. They should be begging for mercy." "Why are they doing this?" Mira did not answer. She did not know what to say. The humans were not following any rules the Krell understood, and that made them more dangerous than any enemy the Empire had ever faced. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. Commander Jihoon sat in his command chair and looked at the reports. The numbers were wrong. They had to be wrong. But every check confirmed them. They were accurate. The Krell Empire had lost 300 ships. 300 out of 2,000. That was 15% of his fleet. The humans had lost almost everything. They had maybe 30 ships left. By all logic, the Krell had won. But it did not feel like a victory. It felt like a nightmare. Every human ship destroyed had taken Krell vessels with it. Cargo ships had become bombs. Fighters had become missiles. Wounded soldiers had kept fighting until they died. Medical staff had refused to evacuate, choosing instead to stay and save others. It was insane. It was illogical. It was terrifying. The worst part was the effect on his own crew. The Krell were warriors. They had trained their entire lives for combat. They did not fear death. But this was different. Death in a fair battle was honorable. But the humans did not fight fair. They fought with desperation and creativity. They did things that should not work, but somehow did. And the Krell crews were starting to fear them. A message came through from the Galaxy Council. It was marked urgent. Priority 1. Jihoon almost did not open it. He knew what it would say. But duty required him to listen. He activated the communication. A hologram appeared. It was a human woman. She wore formal diplomatic robes. The name identification said Ambassador Yuna. She was stationed at the council headquarters. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. "Commander Jihoon," she said. "The Galaxy Council has asked me to deliver a message to you. We tried to warn you 3 days ago. You did not listen. Now you are learning what we tried to teach you without bloodshed." Jihoon wanted to cut the transmission, but he found himself listening. Something in the woman's voice made him pay attention. "You need to understand where humans come from," Ambassador Yuna continued. "Earth is what the Council classifies as a death world. It is a planet that actively tries to kill everything on it. The weather can change from freezing to burning in hours. Earthquakes shake the ground without warning. Volcanoes destroy entire regions. Diseases sweep through populations. And the animals. So many deadly animals," she paused. On the screen behind her, images appeared. Images of Earth, hurricanes, floods, predators with huge teeth, poisonous creatures, harsh deserts and frozen wastelands. Jihoon had seen planets like this before. No intelligent species evolved on such worlds. It was too hard. Life could not develop civilization while fighting for survival every day. "But we did evolve there," Ambassador Yuna said. "Humans survived when everything on our world was trying to kill us. We learned to adapt. We learned to cooperate. We learned to never give up because giving up meant death. That lesson is burned into our DNA. It is part of who we are." The images changed. Now they showed human history. Ancient humans hunting animals 10 times their size. Humans crossing oceans in tiny boats. Humans climbing the highest mountains. Humans surviving plagues that killed half their population. Humans building cities in deserts, in jungles, on frozen tundra. Humans going to war with weapons made of stone, then bronze, then steel, then fire and radiation. "We are persistence hunters," Ambassador Yuna explained. "Do you know what that means? It means we chase our prey until it dies of exhaustion. We are not the fastest. We are not the strongest. But we keep going when everything else has stopped. We do not quit. We cannot quit." Survival taught us that quitting equals death. Jihoon felt cold. He finally understood. The Galaxy Council had not been trying to protect humanity from the Krell Empire. They had been trying to protect the Krell Empire from humanity. "You came to Earth expecting an easy conquest," the ambassador said. "You thought we would surrender when we saw your superior fleet. You thought we would run when the battle turned against us. You thought wrong. We are humans. We do not surrender. We do not run. Even when we lose, we make sure you pay a price so high that you will never forget us." The screen showed the current battle. Human ships burning and broken, still fighting. Jihoon watched a destroyer with no weapons left ram a Krell battleship. Both ships exploded. He watched a damaged station use its last power to fire one final shot that destroyed an enemy cruiser. He watched humans in spacesuits, their ships destroyed, firing handheld weapons at passing Krell vessels. It was futile. It was pointless. It was pure human stubbornness. The Galaxy Council is issuing an official statement, Ambassador Yuna said. Any species that attacks humanity without provocation will be expelled from the Council. All trade agreements will be terminated. All diplomatic relations will be severed. The Council will not support you. You will be alone. And when other species hear what happened here today, when they hear that the mighty Krell Empire lost 300 ships to a single primitive planet, they will know you are not invincible. Your reputation will be destroyed. Ji-hoon stood up. The message was not over, but he had heard enough. He looked at his crew. They were watching him, waiting for orders. He could see the fear in their eyes. These were Krell warriors who had never known fear. But they knew it now. The humans had taught them. Mira spoke quietly. Commander, what are your orders? Shall we continue the attack? Ji-hoon thought about it. He could win this battle. He still had 1,700 ships. The humans were almost defeated. But at what cost? How many more ships would he lose? How many more crew members would die? And even if he won, even if he took Earth, the humans would fight on. They would use guerrilla tactics. They would sabotage everything. They would make the occupation so expensive that it would bankrupt the Empire. He made his decision. All ships, he said, cease fire. Begin retreat. We are leaving. The bridge crew looked shocked. Leave? But we are winning. Are we? Ji-hoon asked. We came here with 2,000 ships. We will leave with 1,700. We attacked a primitive species that should have been easy prey. Instead, they hurt us. They made us bleed. And they did it with outdated technology and sheer determination. No, we are not winning. We are learning a lesson. The Galaxy Council tried to teach us this lesson with words. We refused to listen, so the humans taught us with blood. The Krell fleet turned away from Earth. Slowly, carefully, they began to retreat. On Defense Station Alpha, Captain Sora watched them go. She could hardly believe it. They were leaving. The humans had won. Not through superior force, but through sheer refusal to give up. A cheer went through the command center. It was weak, tired, but it was real. Sora felt tears on her face. She thought about all the people who had died today. Teho and his cargo ship, Nari and her fighter, Doyen and the soldiers he saved, thousands of others whose names she did not know. They had all paid the price for this victory. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Captain Sora. The enemy is retreating. We have won. But the cost was high, too high. Today we lost many good people. We will remember them. We will honor them. And we will make sure their sacrifice meant something. Today humanity proved that we belong in this galaxy. We proved that we will fight for our home. We proved that we never give up. The message spread across the human fleet. It reached the shelters where civilians were hiding. It reached the other human colonies in distant systems. Everywhere humans heard the news, they understood. Earth had survived. The species had survived. And the whole galaxy now knew that humans were not prey. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were a species that would never surrender, no matter the odds. Commander Ji-hoon sat alone in his quarters. He was writing his report to the Krell High Command. He had to explain why he retreated from a battle he was winning. The explanation was simple. The Galaxy Council had been right. Humans were dangerous, not because of their technology, not because of their numbers, but because of something deeper, something in their spirit. They simply refused to lose, and that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Medic Doyen ran through the destroyed corridor of Defense Station Alpha. The walls were twisted metal. Fires burned everywhere. The station had taken 3 direct hits in the last hour. Sections were venting into space. Power was failing. But people were still alive, and as long as people were alive, Doyen had work to do. He found them in what used to be the cafeteria. 30 soldiers trapped by a collapsed wall. Some were injured, some were just scared. All of them were alive. That was what mattered right now. I am here, he called out. Stay calm. We will get you out. Doyen had 2 other medics with him, Hyejin and Juan. They were young, fresh out of training. This was their first real combat situation. They looked terrified, but they were still here. They had not run. Doyen was proud of them. The 3 medics started working. They pulled people out from under debris. They treated wounds. They gave medicine for pain. They talked calmly, keeping everyone focused. Panic killed as surely as weapons. A calm mind helped people survive. After 20 minutes, they had rescued 20 of the 30 soldiers. 10 more were still trapped deeper under the collapsed wall. The metal was too heavy to lift by hand. They needed cutting tools. But the cutting tools were in another section, and that section was sealed off due to fire. Doyen made a decision. Yej and Juan, take these 20 people to the evacuation bay. Get them on a shuttle. Then come back if you can. What about you? Yejin asked. You are coming too, right? Doyen shook his head. I need to get those 10 people out. I cannot leave them. You two go. That is an order. The young medics wanted to argue. But they had been trained to follow orders. They nodded and started leading the rescued soldiers away. Doyen watched them go. Then he turned back to the collapsed wall. The 10 people trapped inside were calling out. They could hear him. They knew someone was there. He could not abandon them. The problem was the heavy metal beam. It was blocking access to the trapped soldiers. Doyen tried to move it, but it was too heavy. He looked around for something to use as a lever. There was nothing. Just twisted metal and broken equipment. Then he heard a sound that made his blood cold. The station's computer warning system. Hull breach in Section 7. 3 minutes to complete decompression. Section 7 was right next to where he was standing. In 3 minutes, all the air would be sucked out into space. Anyone without a suit would die. The trapped soldiers heard the warning too. They started screaming. Panic filled their voices. They knew they were going to die. Doyen felt a pain in his chest. These were his people. He was supposed to save them. That was his job. But he could not move the beam. He could not get them out in time unless... Doyen looked at his medical pack. Inside were drugs. Strong drugs. Stimulants that could make a person stronger for a short time. They were dangerous. Using too much could cause heart failure. But maybe, just maybe, they would give him the strength to move the beam. He pulled out 3 stimulant injectors. The safe dose was 1. He was holding 3. This could kill him. But doing nothing would definitely kill the trapped soldiers. Doyen had been a medic for 15 years. He had saved hundreds of lives. If he died saving 10 more, that was a good trade. He injected all 3 stimulants. The effect was immediate. His heart started racing. His muscles felt like they were on fire. Energy flooded his body. Too much energy. Dangerous levels of energy. But it made him strong. Stronger than he had ever been. Doyen grabbed the metal beam. He pulled. His muscles screamed. His vision started to blur. But the beam moved. Slowly, inch by inch, it shifted. The opening grew wider. Wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Go! He shouted to the trapped soldiers. Get out now, move. They scrambled through the opening. One by one, they escaped. Doyen held the beam with everything he had. His arms were shaking. Blood was coming from his nose. The stimulants were killing him. He could feel his heart beating wrong. Too fast, irregular, but he held on. 8 soldiers out. 9. The last one was a young woman. She was injured and moving slowly. The hull breach warning sounded again. 2 minutes. Doyen could not hold much longer. His strength was fading. The stimulants were wearing off and his body was shutting down. Come on, he said. His voice was weak. You can do it. Almost there. The young woman squeezed through. She was out. All 10 soldiers were free. Doyen let go of the beam. It crashed down with a loud bang. He fell to his knees. His chest hurt so much. He could not breathe properly. The world was spinning. The soldiers surrounded him. Someone was trying to pick him up. We need to get you to the evacuation bay, they said. Can you walk? Doyen tried to stand. He could not. His legs would not work. The stimulants had destroyed his muscles. His heart was failing. He knew these symptoms. He had seen them in patients before. He was dying. Leave me, he said. Get to the shuttle. That is an order. We are not leaving you, the young woman said. You saved us. Now we save you. 4 soldiers grabbed him. They carried him as they ran. The hull breach alarm was constant now. 1 minute. They ran through corridors, dodging debris, jumping over holes in the floor. Doyen tried to stay conscious. He tried to help, but his body was done. He could not even hold his head up. They reached the evacuation bay with 30 seconds to spare. A shuttle was waiting. The soldiers threw Doyen inside. They jumped in after him. The shuttle door closed. The pilot launched immediately. The shuttle burst out of the station just as Section 7 decompressed. Doyen lay on the shuttle floor. Yejin was there. She must have made it back. She was working on him, trying to stabilize his failing heart. But Doyen could see it in her eyes. She knew there was nothing she could do. He had taken too many stimulants. The damage was too great. "It is okay," he whispered to her. "I got them out." "That was the job. You did more than that," Yejin said. She was crying. "You showed us what it means to be a medic." "What it means to be human," Doyen smiled. His vision was fading, but he could still see the faces of the 10 soldiers he had saved. They were alive. That was good. That was worth it. His last thought before everything went dark was simple and clear. He had done his duty. He had saved lives. Nothing else mattered. On the Krell flagship, Commander Ji-hoon received another report. Another human had died fighting. This one was a medic. Not even a soldier. Just a medical worker who had used dangerous drugs to save trapped people. The medic had known the drugs would kill him. He had used them anyway. Ji-hoon looked at Mira. His second officer had tears in her eyes. She was crying for an enemy. That had never happened before. The Krell did not cry for enemies. But these were not normal enemies. These humans were something different, something the Krell had never encountered. "They do not stop," Mira whispered. "Even when they are dying, they keep fighting. They keep saving each other. They keep trying." "Commander, how do you defeat an enemy like that?" Ji-hoon had no answer. For the first time in his long military career, he truly did not know. Commander Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the blue planet ahead. Earth. The humans called it home. He almost laughed at the sight. This world was so small, so weak, so primitive. His fleet had destroyed hundreds of worlds before. This would be easy. The screens around him showed data about the human race. Their technology was ancient. Their weapons were simple. Their ships were slow. Ji-hoon could not understand why the Galaxy Council had called an emergency meeting about these creatures. He had attended that meeting 3 days ago, and it had been a waste of time. The council chamber had been full that day. Representatives from 1,000 species had gathered. The ancient beings who led the council had looked worried. That should have meant something. These beings had lived for thousands of years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They did not worry without reason, but Ji-hoon had not listened to their warning. He remembered the old council leader speaking in a grave voice. The creature had multiple eyes that seemed to look into the soul. It had spoken slowly, carefully choosing each word. "The humans are not like other species," the council leader had said. "They come from a death world. Everything on their planet tried to kill them. The weather, the animals, the diseases, yet they survived. They grew strong. They learned to never give up no matter what happens." Ji-hoon had dismissed those words. Every species thought they were special. Every species had a story about how tough their ancestors were. It meant nothing. What mattered was technology, and the Krell Empire had the best technology in the galaxy. His second officer, Mira, approached him now. She was smaller than most Krell, but she was smart. She had been against this invasion from the start. "Commander," she said quietly, "should we reconsider? The council has never given such a strong warning before. Maybe we should study the humans more before we attack." Ji-hoon turned to look at her. His eyes were cold. "We are the Krell Empire," he said. "We have conquered 300 worlds in the last 50 years. We have never lost a battle. These humans have barely left their own star system. What can they do against us?" Mira looked down. She knew better than to argue when the commander had made up his mind. But Ji-hoon could see the doubt in her eyes. It annoyed him. The Krell were warriors. They did not fear. They did not doubt. He looked at the fleet around his ship. 2,000 warships. Each one was powerful enough to destroy a city with a single shot. Each one carried weapons that the humans could not even imagine. The fleet stretched out in space like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. The humans had detected the fleet 2 days ago. They had sent messages asking for peace talks. Ji-hoon had ignored every message. There was nothing to talk about. The Krell wanted Earth for its resources. The planet had rare metals and perfect water. The humans could either leave or die. It was that simple. "Open a channel to the human defense station," Ji-hoon ordered. "Let us tell them what will happen." A moment later, a human face appeared on the main screen. It was a woman in a military uniform. She had short dark hair and steady eyes. She looked tired but not afraid. The name on her uniform said Captain Soradot. I am Commander Ji-hoon of the Krell Empire, he said in the common galactic language. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to evacuate. Any ships or stations that remain after that time will be destroyed. This is your only warning. Captain Sora stared at him for a long moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. We cannot evacuate 8 billion people in 24 hours. You know that is impossible. That is not my problem, Ji-hoon replied. The Krell do not make empty threats. Leave or die, Captain Sora took a deep breath. Then we will not leave, she said. We will fight, Ji-hoon laughed. It was a harsh, cruel sound. Fight with what? Your weapons are toys. Your ships are slow. You have 200 vessels. We have 2,000. This is not a fight. This is an execution. The human captain did not look away. Maybe, she said. But you will remember us. Every human who dies today will make sure of that. We do not surrender. We do not run. Even if we lose, we will hurt you. We will make you pay for every inch of ground, for every life you take. That is what humans do. The screen went dark. The human had ended the communication. Ji-hoon felt a flash of anger. How dare she speak to him that way? Did she not understand what the Krell Empire could do? Did she not see the size of his fleet? Mira spoke again. Commander, perhaps we should give them more time to evacuate. It would show mercy. The council would approve. Ji-hoon slammed his fist on the command chair. The council is weak. That is why they warn and worry instead of acting. That is why they have not expanded their territory in 1,000 years. We are not weak. We take what we want. He looked at his crew. All weapons ready? He asked. Yes, Commander, the weapons officer said. All ships report full readiness. Good, Ji-hoon said. When the 24 hours are up, we begin. We will show these humans what happens when they refuse the Krell Empire. We will show the whole galaxy that we are the strongest force in existence. But deep in his mind, in a place he would not admit existed, a small voice whispered doubt. The council had never been wrong before. Not once in 1,000 years. Why would they start now? What did they know about humans that his intelligence reports did not show? Ji-hoon pushed the thoughts away. Doubt was weakness. Doubt led to defeat. He was Krell, he was strong. He would crush these humans like insects and take their world. Then he would return to the council and laugh at their fears. The fleet moved forward through space. 2,000 warships heading toward Earth. Each one carried death. Each one was commanded by warriors who had never known defeat. In 24 hours, the war would begin. In 24 hours, Commander Ji-hoon would learn why the Galaxy Council had tried to warn him. In 24 hours, everything would change.